Arsenal 1, Chelsea 0. There have been times in the past few seasons that we won the
corner. Flicked on.
11 games in 2024, 10 wins and 1 draw. And that was against City. Arsenal bottlers transformed, it seems they are.
The 2024-25 season makes it 3 straight seasons when Arsenal, having been in the title race all season, eventually missed out on the trophy. What this means is that 21 years after their super impressive invincible season, Arsenal are still waiting for the next Premier League title. So, it does beg the question, are Arsenal the biggest bottle jobs in Premier League history? For those who don't know what the term bottle job means, it refers to a team who's had a real chance to win a trophy, but ends up messing it up somehow. And this is something that happened to Arsenal long before the Mikel Arteta era. But has it happened that many times for them to be labelled the biggest bottle jobs in the entire history of the Premier League? Where do we even start? You know what? Let's go back to the 2002-2003 season when Arsene Wenger was in charge. At the time, Arsenal were one of the best teams in England. Arsene Wenger came in and quickly transformed the club. He was hired in 1996 and led the Gunners to Premier League success in 1998 and again in 2002. So, going into the 2002-2003 season, Arsenal were defending champions. And with the way they started, everyone expected that they would successfully defend their title. They went on a record-equaling run of 14 straight Premier League wins, scored in a record 55 straight Premier League games, and went 30 games unbeaten from the previous season. It was a dream start. And they didn't just start well, they were doing well deep into the season. Despite their loss to United at Old Trafford in December, they were still 8 points clear of the Red Devils at the start of March. At this point, Paddy Power already started to pay out on bettors who backed Arsenal to win the title. To be fair, the Gunners hadn't even lost a single Premier League game all season at that time, so it felt like the season was all but done. But everything changed in a flash. In March, Arsenal recorded their first loss of the season to Blackburn, and considering United won their game in hand, the gap at the top was reduced to 2 points. Arsenal would go on to draw against Aston Villa and United, and bottle a 2-goal lead against Bolton to end up with another draw. And that put United at the top of the table and in the driver's seat. The big blow came when they lost to relegation-threatened Leeds, and that completed the bottle job. From being 8 points clear in March, Arsenal ended up 5 points off the top of the table at the end of the season, and history would go on to repeat itself in the 2007-2008 season. The North London club were at the top of the table for 2/3 of the season, but they ended up finishing not even second, but third. They'd lost Thierry Henry to Barcelona in the summer of 2007, but they brought in Eduardo that same summer, and he seemed like he was going to be able to get the job done. Arsenal didn't lose a single game until December, and by February, they were 5 points clear at the top. But Eduardo suffered a season-ending injury against Birmingham City, and Arsenal just fell off from then. They drew that game to 10 men Birmingham, no thanks to an error from Clichy. After that draw, Arsenal were shell-shocked, and their captain William Gallas showed it the most. After the full-time whistle went, he sat on the pitch for around 2 minutes before he was pulled up by the coach. That made people question the mentality of the team, because despite that draw, Arsenal were still top of the Premier League table and had their destiny in their own hands. But they soon gave up that lead as they went on to draw 3 more games in a row, costing them their place at the top. United took first spot, and following Arsenal's loss to Chelsea, the Blues leapfrogged them and went to second. So, Arsenal ended the season in third. However, the little bright spot was that they finished with 83 points that season, making it the most points of a third-place team in a 38-game season in Premier League history. Anyway, this bottling trend continued for Arsenal, and you could say it got even worse. In the 2013-14 season, Arsenal were on top of the Premier League table for longer than any other team in the league. But guess where they ended up that season? We'll tell you in a second. But if you're enjoying the video so far, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to help it reach more viewers like you. Now, back to the video. In the 2013-14 season, Arsenal ended up in 4th position, despite being at number 1 for longer than everyone else that season. No jokes. Their trophy drought had extended to 9 years in 2014, and the fans were hoping that a first Premier League trophy in 10 years would help break that drought. And it was looking like that would be the case in the first few months of the season. By November, Arsenal had extended their lead at the top of the table to 5 points after a 2-0 win over Liverpool. But then they went on to lose to United, thanks to a goal from former captain Robin van Persie, and their lead was cut down to 2 points. They managed to regain their 5-point lead in December, but a 6-3 loss to City and a 0-0 draw against Chelsea saw them fall off from the top spot for the first time since September. So, going into Christmas, Arsenal were second, albeit only on goal difference. But before the new year, they went back to the top of the table. In January, Arsenal refused to do any major business. They only signed Kim Schaustrom. And guess what? The day after his signing, he suffered a back injury, which caused him to miss 6 games. Following a 5-1 loss to Liverpool, a 0-0 draw against United, and a 1-0 loss to Stoke, Arsenal dropped to 3rd in March. But things only got worse, as Arsenal didn't manage any wins in the Premier League between the 17th of March and 14th of April. This included a 6-0 loss to Chelsea and a 3-0 loss to Everton, a run that saw them fall to 4th. They would go on to win their last 5 games of the season, but that didn't help much as they ended up in 4th position, 3 points off Chelsea in 3rd place. Remember, this season they were on top of the league for longer than any other team. It was so crazy. 2 years later, they had a real chance to finally win the league again. Regular contenders Liverpool, Chelsea and United were all poor that season, eventually finishing outside the top 4, so Arsenal were favourite. And well, they looked like they'd do it. They were top of the table going into the new year, and with their closest challengers being Leicester City, everyone thought Arsenal would be able to complete the job against the newbies. But that just wasn't the case. The North Londoners fell off in January, allowing Leicester to climb up to 1st. But when the two met in February, Arsenal showed real character, coming back from a goal down to win 2-1. So everyone thought it could still happen for the Gunners. But they ended that month with a 3-2 loss to United, undoing the job they'd done earlier in the month. And that was just the start of a horrible run that would end up costing Arsenal the league. After beating Leicester City on the 14th of February, Arsenal didn't win a Premier League game again until the 19th of March. They would end up winning just 3 of their last 7 games, which caused them to finish 10 points behind Leicester City. It was something of a disaster. Then, a new era began when Mikel Arteta came in, as he transformed the club and turned Arsenal into a top team again. But the stories remain the same. They still can't seem to get the job done at the business end of the season. In the 2022-23 season, Arsenal shocked everyone with their performances. Nobody really gave them a chance going into the new season, but they looked like they were ready this time. And by January, they had an 8-point lead at the top of the table. But February was a horrible month for them, as they went on a 3-game winless run. The third of those games was a 3-1 loss to City, and that saw the defending champions take top spot on goal difference. Arsenal were still in the fight though, and they went on a run of 7 straight wins in the Premier League, so no one counted them out. Well, not until they lost William Saliba and everything went crashing down. Arsenal won just 3 of their last 9 games that season, which meant that despite having been at the top of the table for 248 days and having had an 8-point gap in January, they ended up finishing 5 points off champions Manchester City. The following season was much tighter. They pushed City all the way to the last day, but what really cost them was a nasty run in December, where they won only 3 of their 7 Premier League games that month. But despite that, they somehow managed to regain top spot in March. However, after a draw to City at the Etihad, they dropped down to 2nd, 2 points behind Liverpool, but 1 point above City. Liverpool soon dropped off, and it became a 2-horse race at the end. Arsenal looked like they were in control for much of the race, but a 2-0 loss to Villa at the Emirates in April sort of ruined all their hard work, seeing them fall to 2nd place, 2 points off City. Now, although they didn't drop points in any other game from that point, it wasn't enough because City, too, were perfect. So, Arsenal finished in 2nd place with 89 points, 2 off City. Currently, in the 2024-25 season, after Jurgen Klopp's exit and an unprecedented drop-off from Guardiola's City, it seemed like the perfect time for Mikel Arteta and Arsenal to walk to the title. But somehow in March, they found themselves 15 points off newcomer Arne Slot. However, to be fair, Arsenal did have an uphill battle, with 4 of their first-team attackers and their captain being injured for a considerable amount of time in the season. The club also shot themselves in the foot by refusing to make any meaningful signings in the January transfer window, when the team was obviously in desperate need of a few. And while these might be valid reasons why Arsenal fell off, it just always seems to be something. One season it's injuries, the next season it's poor refereeing decisions against them, and the season after that, it's just that they had no luck. And it's not just in the Premier League that these things happen, you know. Arsenal bottled a chance to break their trophy drought back in 2009. They had a 1-goal lead against Chelsea in the semi-finals of the FA Cup, but they ended up losing that game and missing out on a place in the final. Even worse still, they bottled a League Cup final in 2011 against Birmingham City, a team that got relegated from the Premier League that same season. And shall we talk about the Champions League? They had a chance to win their first ever title in 2006, but they bottled a 1-goal lead against Barcelona and ended up losing. Let's not even talk about the heavy losses to Bayern Munich, Barcelona and AC Milan in the knockout rounds of the competition over the years. Now, don't get us wrong, Arsenal are a top team, no doubt. Surely one of the biggest in England. But they just seem to not be able to consistently get the job done when it's crunch time. Often, something just happens that makes them choke. But would you say that's enough to brand them the biggest bottle jobs in Premier League history? I mean, Liverpool have bottled a few titles in recent times, especially against City in the Premier League and Real Madrid in the Champions League. But considering that they're on their way to their second Premier League title and have won the Champions League recently as well as other domestic cups, that might be an argument for Liverpool and against Arsenal. Also, Liverpool amassed 97 points and 92 points in the league, only to not win, no thanks to Guardiola. And you can say the same for Chelsea. They've bottled a few titles, especially recently in domestic cup finals, but they won the Champions League in 2021, so they have some credit in the bank. Even United, despite falling off so badly, have somehow managed to win trophies every now and again. But then again, you can say that Spurs are bigger bottle jobs than Arsenal. But you must consistently come close to titles to be able to bottle them, and let's face it, Spurs just don't do that. Anyway, we now want to hear from you. Do you think Arsenal deserve that title of being the biggest bottle jobs in Premier League history? And what do you think is the cause of this? Could it be that the mentality just isn't right at the club? Are they just unlucky? Could they be cursed? Get in the comments and let us know. And hey, we'll admit, Liverpool actually bottled the Premier League title in 2024, but they managed to bounce back to likely win it under a new coach in 2025. Looking at how quickly this happened, you might want to know how Arne Slot revived Liverpool after Klopp. And, well, if you just click on this, we'll tell you how it all unfolded.